Hi, everyone. Welcome to Black in Focus. I'm Karen Toulon here, Bloomberg in New York, and we are in for a treat today. We're joined by Kris Bowers. He is an Emmy award-winning composer, and you're not 100% familiar with his name. You probably know his music. Welcome, Kris.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for having me.
And so you're in California and LA, so thanks for joining us so early your time. Kris, you're the composer of the musical scores for Bridgerton, Dear White People, films like Green Book, When They See Us, the Aretha Franklin biopic Respect that's coming out tomorrow, Jennifer Hudson, the video game Madden NFL, Space Jams. I mean, you do a lot. And the reason I wanted to talk with you today is I love talking to people who have kind of atypical careers and talk with them about how they've managed to be where they are. And so I want to talk with you about it. We can remember back when you were just a young musician attending Juilliard. It's 2011, and you win the Thelonious Monk International Jazz Piano Competition at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And someone who turned out to be instrumental in your career was one of the judges. Can you talk to us a little bit about who that was?
Yeah, well, the judges, there's like Herbie Hancock and Jason Moran, and they've still been mentors to me the entire way. And then someone who I met there was actually Aretha Franklin. She was receiving like a Lifetime Achievement Award. And after I performed at the semifinals, she came to that performance and she asked to meet me afterward and said that I was her favorite to win the competition and asked for my information. And about a week later, she just gave me a call out of the blue and asked me what I was going to do since I won the competition and if I had any plans for my career. And she pretty much went into mentor mode and told me, here's somebody I think you should reach out to as your first manager. She's my publicist. Her name's Tracy Jordan, and I think she'd be a great manager for you. And then she continued to give me calls over the years, and I played for Christmas parties and birthday parties and all these things, but she would always ask me how my career was doing and if I had any thoughts about my progress, and she would always kind of chime in.
Wow. And so full circle now with what you're working on Respect that's I guess coming out tomorrow. That's funny how life is that way, huh?
Yeah, pretty wild for sure.
So your debut album Heroes and Misfits that came out then in 2015. You partnered with a MacArthur Genius Grant winner Kyle Abraham on a performance piece. Next year, you both worked on another piece for Alvin Ailey. You worked on Kobe Bryant's Muse. And then you had an Oscar-nominated Concerto as a Conversation short film produced by Ben Proudfoot that was about your grandfather, Horace.
Yeah.
I mention all these things because you do a lot of collaborations with a lot of different people across a lot of different genres. It isn't only just about music.
Yeah.
Why is collaboration so important to you? And it seems like it's always important from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been about how much working with other artists and also other disciplines gets you out of your comfort zone, makes you think about things differently. Like I remember being at Juilliard, and the first time I collaborated with a choreographer there, I wrote a piece of music, and the choreographer was hearing the music in a totally different way than I was hearing it as a musician, where she was saying, oh, at 45 seconds, there's this one note that you do, and if you don't do that note, it messes up this movement for me. So make sure you hit that one note in that certain way, or there are rhythms that they would hear that I'm not really paying that close attention to. And so I think that was one of the first times that I felt like it's so amazing to have someone from a different space hear music and see how they react to it. And also working with different musicians that might hear a song differently and kind of push me in a different direction. So I always feel like I grow whenever I collaborate with someone, and that's what's always exciting to me.
And so I thought if you could humor us a little bit. I just find your career just absolutely fascinating because I grew up, my father is a huge jazz fan. So I grew up listening to old, what I consider old school jazz. If you could just play a little Monk for us and then a little Bridgerton and then maybe a little Madden. Because I just want to hear, how do you get from Monk to Madden? I just don't understand that.
Sure. All right. It's Monk in Bridgerton. And then Madden, the main theme for that was yeah.
That is lovely. So when you are working on those different types of music for very, 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 very different purposes, do you tap into different parts of your brain, different moods? How does that work?
Yeah, definitely moods and emotions. I think that for me, piano, very early on, I started playing when I was really young, but the thing that unlocked it for me and created this connection with the instrument was this realization that I could express where I was emotionally in the moment. And especially once I learned how to improvise, I found that I could, if I was angry or sad and didn't feel like I had a place to express those emotions verbally or, with anyone, I could go to the piano and play from that emotion and move through that feeling. And that's what's always connected me with the piano, what's always connected me with music. And so whenever I'm writing for any project, I'm usually thinking about what is the emotion that I'm trying to convey, or what is the emotion that I'm feeling. And even if I'm, playing a blues like that Thelonious Monk blues, and it's about trying to express that type of feeling. And with Bridgerton, that piece was more about, the mystery of this romance and this person that the main character is infatuated with. And with Madden, it was about having this anthemic kind of, heroic sound. And so I think it's really about focusing on that feeling and that mood, and then improvising until I find some sort of sound or a theme that I can then start to build upon for the piece.
So clearly you're very talented, and it doesn't hurt. I think you were 22 when you won that Monk competition where you were connected with Aretha Franklin. But you're in the type of business where you need to be talented, but you need a lot of other things to be successful, right? It's one of the industries where kind of who you know and having connections. I always wonder, well, what if you don't know anyone, right? What if you don't have any connections? So what would you tell someone who is, just getting out of school, majoring in music, majoring in sound engineering? There's so many young people who are thrilled to be going back to school because they're getting back into their school's theater departments. Or even people who've been working for a while who kind of grew up with music, and it's kind of been that kind of side thing that they've always thought about. What would you tell someone about what it really takes to kind of make it in this business that you're in, if it can even be described as a business anymore, because it is so layered.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a few things that come to mind. One is to definitely be in, like incredibly obsessed about craft. I feel like, every great person I've had the opportunity to work with or meet in any field, the thing I appreciate about them is that they just know their craft so well, and they know it because they're obsessed with it, and all they want to do is continue to learn and grow and get better. I also feel like sharing music is really important. It's interesting how difficult it is even for myself sometimes to feel confident enough to share the music you're working on, but nobody's going to know what your music sounds like unless you put it out there. And so I feel like sharing it is really important. And then lastly, I'd say just to make genuine connections with people, no matter what, and try to communicate to them what your dreams and goals and aspirations are. I feel like for me, it's been so interesting how my one of the biggest projects that really helped push my career was that Kobe Bryant documentary. And I got that project because my friend from a high school jazz all-star jazz band remembered when we were in high school that I used to talk about film scoring so much, and I hadn't seen him since high school. And he came up to me at a show and was like, I've been following your music and it's really great, and I remember in high school you talked about being a film composer, and now I'm producing this documentary, do you want to score it? And I feel like there's so many friendships and connections that I've just made because I wanted to, you know, be friends with somebody that maybe inspired me or that I just wanted to be around. And those are usually the relationships that turned into some sort of opportunity.
The rise of streaming services and scripted series. You've worked on Ava DuVernay's programming, Shonda Rhimes. Are they helping to kind of really widen the pathway, let more people in, not just in front of the camera and not just actors and not just directors and all the other people, but people like you, musicians? Is that also helping people who want to get in?
Yeah, I totally think so. I think that it's one, creating so much more content where we need to have people, creative talent on the back end trying to make that material come to life and be possible. And I also feel like a lot of those streaming platforms are more willing to take a risk. I remember that the first project that I got that was, a studio backed project was the show Dear White People on Netflix, and they were looking for a young composer that hadn't really done very much in the space because they wanted to try something new and fresh and different. And I feel like I have a lot of other incredible composer friends or musicians that are becoming composers that have had opportunities through places like Netflix or Amazon or Hulu. And I feel like they just are all about trying to shake things up and do things differently. And a lot of times that comes with going to spaces where maybe those artists haven't really been seen before or haven't really been tapped, before. And that's really exciting to me.
What do you look to for inspiration? What kind of, if we haven't been in normal times, so we haven't been able to travel. I know that I love, my favorite thing personally is to just get plopped down in a small town or village somewhere and just wander around. And if I can find a bookshop, then I'm really in my sweet spot. But what do you look for inspiration? Is it other music? Is it film? Is it food? Is it fashion? What kind of, when you're working on something, what do you try to surround yourself with?
Yeah, it's pretty much anything. I mean, I feel like I worked with Kobe for a while after we did the documentary, and the thing I was always impressed with him about was that he would talk about how he learned how to guard Allen Iverson by watching shark documentaries, and he learned how to like fix his jump shot by watching something about cheetahs because he realized they use their tail for balance, and he decided to use his leg for balance. And like, being able to see everything or every part of the world and find some sort of inspiration for it, I feel really inspired by. And so I find myself to be pretty similar, where I read a bunch of books. I read usually like 3 or 4 books a month, and then my wife and I watch TV and movies, but like with a very, very critical eye, where we're like breaking down the story and how they've structured the story and how they're shooting it and like the way it looks and all of these different things. I'm a very visual person, so I've been getting into photography and I love taking pictures and looking at visual art. So really, it's like kind of anything and everything usually is something I'm pulling from
And
inspiration.
are you doing what you always thought you'd be doing? Is this what you always thought you would be doing?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I started playing piano when I was 4. My parents decided before I was born they wanted me to play piano, and when I was about 10 or 11, I told my parents that I want to go to school for jazz piano and then tour with jazz artists and tour with my own jazz band and then transition into film scoring. And I fell in love with film scoring when I was about 9 or 10, just because I realized I could listen to the score from a film and feel the same feelings I felt when I was sitting in the theater watching the movie. And again, having that emotional connection to the piano, I was like, there's a job where I can like translate emotion into music. That's all I want to do. And there was a brief period of time where I wanted to be a cartoonist, and for like maybe like 3 years. But after I got to my freshman year of high school, I never really looked back, and it's always been music.
When you're working on a score, if you could, for those of us who just watch, films and TV like regular people, could you play a little bit of something that will help us kind of understand how a theme or music that might be attached to a person might kind of weave their way uh, through?
Totally. Yeah. So
Does that make sense?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, with the going back to that Bridgerton theme, uh,
Hmm.
it was the theme for the main two characters. It's their love theme, and the first time we hear it in this way that's uh, really looking at how she's very captivated by this mystery that's surrounding this man, and so a lot of it has this mysterious kind of quality to it. And so that melody is. And later in the season, there's times where they feel very much like they're in love, and all of a sudden the theme is. So it has more of a happy kind of quality to it. So it's really taking that melody and finding different ways to play it. And basing it on the emotion that is happening in the scene at the time.
Before I let you go, during COVID, music really stepped in to become such. It was like the great convener, right? You had D Nice with
Yeah.
the massive virtual global dance parties.
Yeah.
You had Timbaland and Swiss Beats with the versus DJ battles. It almost became. It's almost like it was like a new art form, right? The theaters were closed, but there was music, and music was convening live people all together. Um, what is it about music? What is it about music that just gets us going?
I really think it has to do with like the sound, the vibrations, like the fact that it's literally pulling you to move. Like they've done so much studying where they see how parts of our brain are connected to rhythm and time and things like that, and that like they have people who are having difficulty with speech that can sing, or people that are having difficulty with walking, that if you put a piece of music on, they can move to the beat. And so it's just so connected to us in a really primal way. I feel like it's something that it's to me the only art form that really does that. And then also there's a nostalgic aspect of it, where you hear a piece of music and it can immediately take you to an emotional place or a memory or a feeling, and that's something that is really special about it.
What's next for you? Are you working on something that you can share with us? That's
Yeah.
a secret that you haven't told anyone else, but you're going to tell us right now.
Well, I mean, there's something I haven't talked about that much yet. I mean, there's a couple things. One, or maybe a few things I can mention. There's the film King Richard with Will Smith about Venus and Serena Williams' dad. I just finished scoring, and that comes out in November.
Very cool.
And then I'm also working with Shondaland on her next show about Anna Delvey. And then I'm doing curating a night and writing a new piece for the LA Phil at Disney Hall here in LA in November. So those are kind of the few things that are front of mind right now.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for a girl who only mastered the plastic recorder flute. I was absolutely thrilled to speak with you. Thank you so much for all your music and for playing a little bit for us today. Kris Bowers, composer. Next week on Black in Focus, a really good show. We have Ella Bell Smith and Stella Como. Two professors are going to join me to talk about their book, Our Separate Ways. It's a revised edition of their seminal 2003, I believe, look at how race and class affect Black and white women differently as they try to rise to the top. But until then, I'm Karen Toulon, and this is Black in Focus, and this is Bloomberg. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.